So the first thing I thought of was the trade trap. But the problem is we want to avoid trap. Like the trade anti-trap doesn't really work. But still, I needed to say this just because I could say something dumb and you could be like, wait, no, I have something like that works.
Right.
But trade trap, no. And then I thought of the trade troubadours. And then I realized I don't know what a troubadour is.
Is that even a word?
It's a singer, I think. But it, again, both start with TR. So it really came into my mind. And then I was like, the trade trio -1 because we're a duo. And I'm like, duo. Then I said the trade-namic duo because I'm a really big Batman fan. And while that necessarily doesn't roll off the tongue, it would make me happy if we went with that. Like I said, these are all pretty bad, but I kind of just was hoping to make you laugh. And it worked. Yay!
I feel like we'll just stick with Trade Show.
DLF Trade Show. There you go. Welcome back, everybody. The still named DLF Trade Show is back. We have a new player today that we are going to talk about a trade that, well, let's face it, Addison put the show sheet together. So Addison found it on the DLF Trade Finder because DLF Trade Show. And we are going to examine today James Robinson. Addison found the trade. We'll read it out in a second. We're going to say how we feel about it. We'll give you a little background on the teams that made this trade. We'll run it through the trade analyzer, and then we'll wrap it up a little bit just to say if we agree, how we feel, and all of that more mushy stuff. So let's get into the league first. We have 12-team Superflex with 6 points, touchdowns, -4 interceptions. This trade was made on February 9th, and it seems like every league we are going to be using is going to be a safe league. I saw this, and right away I loved it because it's nice and easy. James Robinson is so tough to value right now, and you always get that simplistic question of what pick is James Robinson worth? And this is almost straight, so this is wonderful. What we have right now is James Robinson for the 105 and 205. Now, real quick, before we get into our values, how we feel about the trade, how the analyzer feels about it, Addison, why don't you run us through these teams a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So, as we did last week, I tried to give a little bit of context around this trade in terms of both teams and kind of their situations and the directions that they're heading. So, the team that gave up James Robinson and got the 105 and the 205 were actually the next to last place team. They finished 4-9 in the regular season, and they've made actually a handful of trades that, from what I could see, and they have a boatload of other picks. They have the 101, now the 105, also had the 106, the 201, the 203, the 205, and the 2.07. And then I looked at their roster after seeing all of that, and they are in a complete rebuild. Their quarterbacks are Daniel Jones and Mitch Trubisky. Their best running back is Gus Edwards. Their best wide receivers are Juju, Chark, Landry, Denzel Mims, and then he has Robert Tonyan at tight end. So has the pieces at least for wide receivers, and Tonyan I think is an okay tight end, but definitely needs quarterbacks, definitely needs some running backs in there. But in a complete rebuild, you can definitely build those out later as you get down the road. And so having all of those picks and seeing that he moved James Robinson for another first for the 1.05 and the 205 definitely made sense to me, because he's not going to need James Robinson if he's in this far of a rebuild. So I really like the trade from his perspective, moving away Robinson for the first and the second. So the team that got James Robinson, then they went 6-7 in the regular season. They just missed the playoffs. But when you look at their roster, their roster is actually kind of terrifying. And then you add James Robinson into it as well. Their quarterbacks are Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, Derek Carr, and Tom Brady. Running backs are Zeke, Miles Sanders, James Robinson, and then Ronald Jones, Tony Pollard, and a couple other guys like that. Wide receivers are Keenan Allen, Tyler Boyd, Cortland Sutton, Deebo Samuel, and Gabriel Davis. Tight ends are Jonnu, Eric Ebron, and Tyler Higbee. And they also have the 1.07 as well to add potentially another skill position player on top of what they already have. So from his point of view and perspective, I think getting James Robinson and taking the shot on another elite running back, assuming that they don't add anybody in the draft. I don't expect them to. So that's, I think, a pretty solid trade for him. The only thing I would be wondering is, and I guess this is kind of going to be the crux of the show, is would you rather have James Robinson, or that 1.05 could easily be Travis Etienne or, maybe Javonte Williams if you wanted that running back at the 105 spot. I doubt Najee Harris would be there, but it is Superflex that might end up going that way. But you're looking more at a Travis Etienne type running back as a rookie at that pick. Or you can just go with the proven guy who's already done it in the NFL, has a little bit of risk in terms of that UDFA tag, but James Robinson is a pretty solid stud at currently right now.
Yeah, you have to hope that Jacksonville has the common sense. They're like, look, we're rebuilding. Getting a running back isn't going to make us magically win, So you have to hope, pray, and all of those other things you do that rational GMing will find their way down to Jacksonville, and they won't spend, major capital on a running back because they have zero depth. So adding someone 5th, 6th round, if you got it, that would probably be helpful. Because while it's wonderful in theory to have your guy have like a 90% snap share, which I think James Robinson did for at least a large chunk of last year, or close to it, it's good to let him rest. It's good not to have him break down by the end of the season. It's good to, get a little away from overuse, which would lead to injury, which leads to polls, which leads to missing your guy the entire season. But you're absolutely right. I think Team B getting that player, we've seen it do it before, it's absolutely the right move, especially when he has the 107. I really, really, really want to know if this started out as James Robinson for the 107, and then the counter was 105 and 205, because to me, that's exactly what I would have done. Because to me, that's like beautiful symmetry of like, he's worth a little bit more. Yeah, okay, how about these 2 picks instead of just that one? So this, to me, a beautifully even trade. And I get it. Like, ETN is fun. He's fast. He's good. He needs to land in the right spot. The same, I think Harris is the only running back that won't be super landing spot dependent. The only thing that will matter with Harris is hopefully a team that is absolutely running back needy takes him. Like, you don't want like Cincinnati to draft him to share a backfield with Joe Mixon, like something stupid like that, where you have a guy that could and should be, at least in my mind, a workhorse, but maybe the NFL just isn't going that way all that often anymore. So as long as Harris finds himself in a place where he's at least the 1A, he's fine. Then you don't have to worry about him. I think Harris, Williams, and going down a little further to Carter and remember when Hubbard was such like a big deal? Like all of these guys are so dependent, and like you really have to cross your fingers for them to be the 1A. But we know that Robinson is at best the 1. I mean, letters be damned. He could be the 1. So absolutely. And, I said it last episode and I'll say it every single episode we ever talk about. I'm a wide receiver guy. So it hurts my soul a little bit to say I'm not going to get Jamar Chase because there's a chance that if 3 quarterbacks and those 2 running backs go, you have Jamar Chase. Well, I guess that's even 6. So there you go. Like you have that choice between that second running back or Chase is my running back, wide receiver 1 at least. And again, so on the other side, exactly, this dude's rebuilding. So yeah, like you don't want a running back. Chances are, hopefully you have your 21 first. And if this is 21, you're 22 first. If you have your 22 first, you want your team to not score points. In which case, getting those rookie quarterbacks, getting those rookie wide receivers, you have a little pumping on the brakes of points, especially getting rid of a dude that will be at best, the running back on his team. So this trade, again, like you found 2 great trades last week and this week. To me, this is absolutely perfect for both sides. And the value to me is James Robinson worth the 105, plus that little bit? Yes. Would I personally pay that? I don't think so. But again, I think it's right. If we looked at ADP for February Superflex, and Robinson was actually between the 104 and the 105, which kind of exactly is the 105 plus a little. But also, in ADP, Jamar Chase was 2 picks behind him. So like maybe swap them 2 and I'll feel a little bit, the 106 where those 2 running backs and the wide receiver 1 and those 3 quarterbacks are gone, and I'll feel a lot safer about it. And if I have a team where I'm super competing, like this other team where maybe they had a couple of bad breaks, and otherwise he should have absolutely made the playoffs, in which case, all you need is a little luck after that. So yeah, Robinson is absolutely the right move, but let's stop, just agreeing with each other and talking in circles. Let's go to the trade analyzer for a second. James Robinson is worth 367.7 points. The 105 is worth 445.4. And the 205 is worth 128.3. So it's a total of 573.8 for 367.7. And that is a total, I have to scroll, a difference of 206 points, which is about the 112. Wow, that's a lot. I don't think it's that far apart at all. To me, this should be right. I mean, we've both said that a lot, that we think this is about right where it is. ADP, I know that doesn't always translate to trade value, but again, I think it's close enough, right? That 105, right. 106 area. Another first on top, and I know the 112 you're pretty much in dart throw territory at that point, but at least in this class, it's a little bigger of a dartboard.
In the Superflex in this class, that's still like Rashad Bateman, Rondell Moore,
Tylan Wallace, like that
Gainwell kind of.
Yeah, that's second tier of players, because to me that first tier is like a good 7-8 players. Like I have Rondell Moore in my first tier, but
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I get
Waddle,
that.
If Moore goes ahead, you got Jalen Waddle 112.
Yeah, height Twitter, has a little problem with Rondell Moore, but like 112 difference to me. Sorry DLF, sorry Trade Analyzer. This is 2 weeks in a row where we're just a little not kind of with you, but we love you anyway.
We've covered everything. This is basically, we kind of said this right before, like this is a go get your guy kind of trade. Like if you're trying to trade the 105 for James Robinson, that other guy's like, I just need that second round, and James Robinson is that guy that you think could push you into contention like this team's roster looks like it possibly could, then the 205 is a pretty negligible amount to add on in order to get James Robinson, especially when like you said, just to kind of reiterate, like if you don't believe that any of these running backs in this class as of right now, outside of Najee Harris, are going to be as good as James Robinson next year or the year after, then that 105 is pretty easy to move on from if you're looking for a running back. So I would, the only final thing I guess I would say is expect them to add somebody, just because they need to. It's not Raquel Armstead, it's not Chris Thompson, it's not Devine Azigbo. Like they need to add somebody. So if they add like an Elijah Mitchell or a Trey Ragas or Jarrett Patterson in like the 6th round, like that would be essentially them saying James Robinson's still our guy, and he's all in as an RB1 in 2021. So
yeah, and the important point about that being what we think will actually happen, at least again, rational GMing. His James Robinson, I should say, his value will go up after the draft if they don't take someone to share the backfield with him.
Yeah.
So 105 and the 205 may not get this done in, where are we? Like a month and a half. I know I'm absolutely a proponent of don't build a starting lineup right now, but this is a thing of value that, again, if you spend the 105 and 205, get James Robinson will be worth more in 2 months. So it is both a good move for your starting lineup if you are one of those people that care about it, but it also will be good for the value of your team. So
yep.
Rock and roll. All right. Well, that is our James Robinson episode. I am Dynasty Outhouse on Twitter. He is AmazeHaze_. This is the DLF Trade Show, and we'll see you next time.